I open my eyes to a gray morning, the sky already overcast with a hint of rain. The apartment is quiet, too quiet. I feel last night's lies heavy in my chest as I fight the urge to just stay in bed. But today is far from ordinary. My grandmother's funeral is happening now, and I'm not there. It hits me like a physical blow all over again. My grandparents raised me, poured love into every Sunday pancake and holiday cookie, and they never once asked for anything in return. Not even today. I slip out of bed, staring at the wedding band on my finger and the long neglected cell phone on the nightstand. The room is scattered with memories of Grandma, a faded photo of us at the county fair, the embroidered quilt she made me, her favorite herb-scented candle still unworn. My hand trembles as I reach for the quilt. I wrap it around myself and sit on the edge of the bed, trying to breathe. "Grandma," I whisper, "I'm sorry." Just yesterday, I'd been packing a suitcase, planning a surprise visit. We lived hours apart, and she was getting older. I wanted to see her, hold her hand, maybe help bake one last apple pie. But I hadn't known the funeral was happening. My parents said I was overseas for work, that I'd miss Grandma soon anyway. They lied. I sit up now and realize I'd been lied to. An envelope lies face down on the kitchen table, with my name scrawled in Grandma's handwriting. My pulse spikes. A letter from her, but how I gingerly pick it up, tracing the paper with fingertips that remember every curve and swirl of her penmanship. My pulse hammers. Inside is a note, 3 simple words in Grandma's exact script. "It's time. Come home." Tears sting my eyes. Long paths outside have closed in an instant. I scramble for my phone, no signal. Upstairs, I fling open the window to call out, but only the hum of the city answers. In the mirror, I see it, guilt shame. "I'm sorry," I mutter, running to the door. I didn't deserve Grandma's loyalty. Maybe I didn't deserve her. Outside, the air is cool. I lean back on the doorframe, terrified, leaving the funeral unforgivable. But sitting out here doing nothing feels like a betrayal too. A horn honks in the distance. Cars glide by, people who knew. My parents inside, listening to the pastor eulogize her. I have her final note in my pocket and a locket she gave me when I was a boy, both almost forgotten. I force myself to step away. A taxi crawls by. I hail it with shaking fingers. "I need to get to St. Margaret's Church," I say. Tears slip. "Please, a funeral service." The driver nods, apprehensive. As we pull away, I whisper, "I have to see her." I hold on to the locket in my fist. The taxi's mirror catches my reflection, bruised eyes, pale with regret. Through the window, I see the gathering crowd at the small chapel. My parents, arms around each other, not even noticing the vacant pew. A single wreath of white lilies adorns Grandma's casket. A place of honor, empty now. By the time I reach the church, step service is ending. Mourners shuffle out in a hush. The pastor notices me and pauses mid-sentence, startled to see me. Whispers ripple through the crowd. "That's him." "She came." I glance toward my parents. My father's mouth opens, closes. My mother's face falls. They didn't tell me. Even now they still don't understand. I walk quietly down the aisle, each step heavy. The pastor puts a gentle hand on my shoulder. I swallow past the lump in my throat. "He came," Grandma had smiled, knowing I would. Those were her last words to me. A single tear rolls down my cheek. Outside again, under the pale sky, I breathe sharply. The gardener is sprinkling flowers around Grandma's grave. He turns at the sound of my footsteps. "Grandma's grandson," he says softly, recognizing me. I kneel by the grave. Wet dirt gathers on my knees, and I don't care. Pulling out the locket from my hand, I place it on the stone next to her name. My voice breaks as I finally say it out loud. "I'm here. I'm so sorry. I mean it." The weight of her absence is almost unbearable, but at least now I've acknowledged it. Tears fall freely, and for the first time since I found out, I feel something moving under the grief. A small, fierce spark. I don't know if it's strength or rage, but it's there. The weeks that followed felt like I was living someone else's life. I left Grandma's funeral without a word to my parents. At my own home across town, I tossed that locket and her letter on the bedroom dresser and stared at the ceiling in the dark. Morning came too quickly, and everything around me, the dishes in the sink, the mail I hadn't opened the room untouched since Grandma died, smelled like failure. I hadn't heard a word from my parents. No check-in, no guilt apology. Silence. They hadn't once asked me if I made it to town. As the days crawled by, that silence burned. Each night, I replayed every conversation I'd had with them, wondering how they justified shutting me out. They promised they tried to call, Dad had said later when he cornered me on the phone. But the truth was, they gave up trying. They chose the lie. Bitterness settled in. The memory of Grandma's warm living room now became a source of pain. Every framed photo of us was a reminder that while I was gone, she was alone. And because of that final letter of hers, which I'd yet to read, those people at the funeral had my place. No, I decided. I refused to fade quietly, the good daughter who still cares. I spent hours holed up reading that handwritten will. With Grandma gone, I was supposed to inherit her house and everything inside. It was supposed to be mine by right, proof she'd always believed in me. But whether or not the law supported it, my parents felt entitled to that home. They kept asking if I really expected them to move out of Grandma's place, or if I was sure Grandma really meant to give it to me. Their words cut deeper than any guilt trip. They talked of responsibility and family unity, as if inheriting anything from Grandma should somehow make me ungrateful. As if turning a blind eye to Grandma's last wishes was unity. One night, I met Dad for coffee. He gave me that practice smile as if we were just talking about work. Think of this way, he said. We're all of us holding together what little family we have left. His eyes were steady. I realized he did know what he'd done. But he expected me to swallow it. I nearly laughed. I loved her too, I said quietly. I'd give you everything just like she left it to me. But he just shook his head. The injustice of it spiked inside me. I'm not asking for charity, I snapped, voice low. I'm asking for what was mine. He clapped a hand on my shoulder. Don't be childish, Elaine. The word stabbed. That night, I finally opened Grandma's letter, end to end. My tears stained the lines where she scolded, "Don't be childish." She knew. She knew they were fighting over her house in their grief. She had written the will herself firmly and clearly. All for me. I ended up on the floor, the legal papers crumpled in my fists. Angry, grieving fury bubbled up and stayed there. And in that moment, I realized I couldn't let it end like this. Not quietly, not unfairly. Grandma had trusted me to see the truth. I owed it to her to do something. Each day for the next week, I crafted a plan. I would go legal if I had to. First, I gathered evidence, the house deed, wire transfer records of money she'd saved. I retreated to Grandma's house itself on weekends to feel close to her. One Sunday, I found a stash of her old photos in the attic. In a frame they had written for me was the wedding picture of Grandma and Grandpa with me kissing her cheek. I held it and cried alone. It stoked my resolve. Then the day I'd been waiting for arrived. I served the paperwork at my parents' door in person. They answered, expecting petty drama. My voice was firm when I spoke. Grandma left everything to me, I said. I handed over the legal documents, the official will, which disinherited them. My mother's face went pale, my father's hands jittered. I felt the tables turn. That's what she wanted, I continued. I'm claiming it. For the first time, I saw panic in their eyes. I was not being childish. I was being just. A long, heavy silence followed. Then Dad nodded. Fine, he hissed. It was both victory and heartbreak. Justice feels hollow when you see it break others. But as I walked away from that house for the last time, the weight on my shoulders was suddenly lighter than it had been in months, The day blurred, as if it were an ugly movie on loop. I drifted through my apartment, touching things without really feeling them. The silver locket lay on the dresser, its promise now feeling hollow. I cupped it in my hands, then let it fall. It hit the wooden floor with a quiet clink, and I watched it spin idly before rolling into shadow. I couldn't bring myself to pick it up yet. That locket, Grandma's promise that I would never be alone now, it felt like a ghost mocking me. Hunched over, I ran my fingers through the tangled sheets on my bed. The sun moved in lazy arcs across the ceiling, indifferent to my pain. Outside, neighbors walked their dogs blissfully ignorant. In here, only silence and stale air remained, and something pitiful like a low ache that never went away. I remembered how Grandma used to yell at me if I sat in the dark for too long. Now I sat in darkness by choice, ignoring phone calls and letting the hours melt into nothing. The apartment was a mess, clothes on the floor, coffee cups piling up. It was somehow comforting that chaos matched the turmoil inside me. By evening, I found myself clutching the side of Grandma's empty bed in her house, not mine. It was impulsive. I don't even know how I drove there. The smell of lavender air freshener and old wood filled my nose, and I realized that I'd been holding my breath. Grandma's bedroom looked exactly the same, even though everything had died. Her quilt was still draped over the back of the rocking chair. A half-finished crossword puzzle lay on the bedside table, a pen beside it. It was like she might walk back in any moment and resume her quiet routine. In that still house, I felt like an intruder, bearing terrible news that had already been heard. Still, I sat at the foot of the bed, looking at all the signs of life that had ended. I plucked the locket up gently from the floor, as if afraid to disturb the air. The photo inside was still there, her warm smile, at peace in black and white. My mind flicked back to the last time we spoke. I remembered her holding my hand outside the church years ago, guiding me through something that had hurt. Now it was me alone in the dark. Outside the window, dusk crept up on the backyard garden where Grandma's sunflowers drooped in the evening chill. I felt a tear slip down my cheek. They would never be tended again. I didn't cry out loud. Instead, I lay down on the lumpy mattress Grandma had slept on, clutching the quilt she'd made me once. It was the one I kept at my apartment too, but somehow here, it felt more alive. Curled on that bed, I let a heavy, exhausted cry shake me. My sobs filled the silent house. For how long I cried, I couldn't say. At some point, the stress gave out, and I fell into a fitful sleep on that bed, the quilt wrapped around me. In dreams, I stood in a funeral line of strangers, each one ignoring me, a single tear for every goodbye I never got to say. Dawn's cold fingers woke me before the sun. I pulled myself up, feeling emptier than before. The quilt slid off my shoulders and pooled on the floor. The emptiness remained. I hadn't slept. All night, the dark thoughts played over and over. Was my life always destined to be this way, without a real family standing by? Hopelessness was a heavy cloak. I pictured the rest of my life a series of omitted moments, with people moving on, writing me out like a minor character. The grand things happen only for others, never for me. Shivering, I found my car keys on the dresser. I realized I was still wearing one of Grandma's old wool sweaters I had taken, as if needing to be wrapped in her warmth. Even this comfort seemed far away. I left her house, quietly locking the door behind me like a tomb. Outside, the air was crisp. I hunched into myself against the wind and looked at the sky. It felt as empty as I was. Driving back to my own apartment, I turned on the radio. But the songs were meaningless, happy songs about goodbyes and new beginnings, jukebox tunes with lyrics I would gladly smash. At home, everything awaited my dishes, my mess, my loneliness. The sun had come up, but it offered me no warmth. I sunk into the couch and stared at the ceiling, numb. There was no one to come to, no advice to ask. only my fault lines and scars. Even the promise from Grandma faded. I stared at the quilt on the bed at home, thinking I should be grateful I had even that. It felt wrong to think of gratitude now. The phone rang. For a moment the screen read, "Unknown." I grabbed it, expecting perhaps the funeral home or some bureaucrat. Instead, it was my boss checking if I'd come to work. The ordinary question felt surreal. Work today, I had lied and told him I'd be out sick, needing some distance. Each day merged into the next. I went through motions, made coffee I barely drank, ate frozen dinners, and took extra pills before bed just to sleep. No letter arrived, no phone call. No one from my old life seemed to remember me at all. In the silence of my apartment, suffocating in loneliness, I realized, with a sinking dread, I had no one left who truly saw me. As night fell again, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, clutching the locket. I whispered to the darkness, "Grandma, are you there?" No answer came, just the hum of the AC. I woke to a dull ache between my shoulder blades. Night after night, hunched over on the couch, had left me sore and restless. For a long moment, I lay in darkness, listening to my own steady breath. Then, blinking away the fuzz of sleep, I noticed a small envelope peeking out from under the door. My heart gave a curious little jump. "Who is this?" I lay there for a moment before pushing myself up. The envelope had my name on it in Grandma's familiar handwriting. With trembling fingers, I tore it open. Inside were 2 pieces of paper. I unfolded the first and recognized her flowing script at once. "My dearest, my name." It began as if Grandma herself were speaking to me in the room with her soft voice. Every line felt like her warm presence beside me. "If you're reading this, I'm no longer by your side, but you are never truly alone. I know you must be hurting, so read this when you're ready, in a quiet place. I have always believed in you, my heart, and I want you to have everything I have saved. All that is mine comes to you, my house by the garden, my savings, everything. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Use it to build the life you deserve. Remember, even when I'm gone, I'm with you." Tears blurred my vision as I clutched the paper to my chest. Grandma had left me everything: her home in the country, all her savings, the life she had built. I was shaking at the realization. Why had my parents tried to keep me away? And yet, amid the anger and grief, something unexpected began to kindle in me hope. Grandma's words were quiet but fierce. "You are never truly alone." I blinked and wiped a tear. That was just for me. It was as if she knew exactly what I needed to hear. All at once, I felt something shift. I let the letter fall and inhaled deeply. In the silence of my apartment, each breath felt like a promise. I was no longer a spectator in my own story. I had power now. I pressed the letter back together and looked around with new eyes. The morning sun had spilled through the curtains, bathing the kitchen in golden light. For the first time in a long time, I felt warm inside. I turned my gaze to the old quilt on the chair, the one Grandma had knitted. It smelled faintly of lavender still. Wrapping it around my shoulders, I felt her closeness again. I held her letter in one hand and the quilt in the other. I took a slow sip of the black, steaming coffee I had made, letting its strength seep through me. Standing there, I made a decision. I tore a page from a notepad and began writing. Call lawyer, visit Grandma's house, find her will, change locks. Each item I scribbled felt like a rock to step on, giving me solid ground. The list gave my mind purpose and direction. I sat back down with the letter and the quilt and let all the emotions wash over me. The letter still said she believed in me. I believed in me now, too. Then I picked up the phone and dialed the number of Grandma's attorney, the name I had memorized years ago. "Hello?" A sleepy voice answered. Hello, I'm my name. I'm reading my grandmother's will. I need to go through her estate. By the end of the call, I had an appointment. It was something to hold on to proof that her world was now my world. Not a bad start, I thought, a small smile tugging at my lips. Outside, the sky had turned a brilliant blue. I stepped out onto the front porch, sipping the last of my coffee. The sun was higher, painting my street with light. For once, I didn't feel afraid to be noticed. I looked up at the sky and felt Grandma in the warmth on my face. "I'm coming for you, Grandma," I whispered, shutting the door behind me. Today, I decided I would step into the sun. By the end of that week, I had settled my mind. I went to the attorney and signed the papers, Grandma's house, and savings were officially mine now. Each line on the contract felt like a promise fulfilled. I stepped out of the law office into the afternoon sun, warm and golden, and I almost smiled. In that light, everything was different. I drove toward her country house as evening fell. The familiar gravel path crunching beneath my tires reminded me of summers spent with her. Turning onto it, my stomach clenched. This house had been her world, and now it was mine. Inside, her scent still lingered, lavender and old books. Everything was just as she'd left it, her quilt on the sofa, her knitting needles in the basket, an unlit candle on the table. Walking through the rooms, I felt her presence behind every object. In the living room stood the rocking chair where she used to knit. I ran a finger along the cushion. The grandfather clock still ticked in the corner, its hands frozen at the time of her death. I pressed a finger to its glass and whispered a thank you. I found her photo albums in the study. On the floor, I spread out old pictures, me and Grandma, with ice cream cones on a hot day, Grandma pinching my cheeks as I cringed and laughed. I traced the images, letting the memories wash over me. There was the photo of us on the porch swing, both grinning at the camera, and one of us at the beach sand in our hair. I held one in particular to my heart, us in matching red aprons, flour all over our faces as we baked cookies. We both looked so happy. A tear trickled down my cheek. Carefully, I packed a box with those photos, my baby picture, and the letters she had given me over the years. On top, I placed the portrait of Grandma in her younger days, smiling. I sealed the box with tape and placed it in the trunk of my car. That was when the last light of dusk slipped away. Back in town, I had one more move to make. I wasn't finished yet. Late that evening, I made a private call to the florist. I asked for the biggest, most beautiful wreath they could craft, using her favorite flowers, lilies and white roses. On the black ribbon across it, I had them write 4 words in Grandma's handwriting, "All that is mine." The florist didn't ask questions. "Deliver it this afternoon to St. Martin's Church under the large window," I said softly. Each word I spoke felt like part of a vow. The next day, with my heart in my throat, I waited. In my car, I rehearsed the moment. At the appointed hour, I drove to the church and slipped inside the back row. The service had begun, soft organ music filling the air. My palms were sweaty as I sat pretending to pray. Moments later, 2 ushers brought in the wreath. They placed it carefully under a great stained glass window. My breath hitched when I saw it, a halo of white flowers so large it caught every eye. And there, in black script across the ribbon, were those 4 chilling words in Grandma's own hand. A hush fell as everyone read it. My father's face went ashen. My mother gasped and clutched his sleeve. Even Jana gasped softly, turning toward me with tears in her eyes. In that silence, I stood and walked slowly down the aisle. Heads turned toward me, some in confusion, others with dawning realization. I held my head high, not a word escaping my lips. Passing rows of stunned mourners, I saw more shock than I ever had in a crowd. Grandma's will was exposed for all to see. The outsider, the one they thought absent, was the one holding all the cards now. I stopped at the last pew and quietly sat down. The organist resumed playing, but the melody felt different now, fuller, triumphant. Through the window, the late afternoon sun painted the church in warm light. In this spotlight of truth, the dinner I had felt like a funeral turned feast was over. I had had the final word. I rose slowly from the pew. The church was deathly silent except for the mournful echo of the organ. All eyes were fixed on the wreath still draped in Grandma's words, and now on me. My heart thumped wildly as I walked down the aisle toward my family. Candlelight flickered over tear-streaked faces. I stopped before them, my mother's eyes like saucers, her cheeks wet. My father's jaw clenched in anger and guilt. Jana clung to my mother's arm, wide-eyed. I spoke clearly, my voice trembling. "This is for me." I pointed to Grandma's wreath. She left everything to me in writing. A rustle of shock went through the crowd. I took a shaky breath. She wanted me to have her home, her savings, everything. I guess I was naive to think you would honor that. My mother bolted upright, crying out, "Sweetheart, please." I raised a hand. The organist faltered. The sermon paused. All attention was on me. "Save it," I said quietly, grief and anger battling in my throat. "You lied to me." My voice cracked. "You knew I was her favorite. You made me think I wasn't even here." My father shook with fury. "That's a lie. We tried to—" "You tried," I spat. "Your voicemail was full. My letters were returned. You never even called." A gasp went through the congregation. My mother was sobbing openly now, twisting the edge of her shawl. Jana slid beside me, pressing my hand with hers. I continued, voice firm despite tears. I sat on the other side of the world, not knowing Grandma was dying. "You kept me away from her, and then you had the nerve to stand here, acting like the children lost the important one." Mom's lips trembled, her eyes darted away. My father staggered backward, as if struck. He fell to his knees in the aisle, cradling his face in his hands. "We're sorry," he whimpered. I took a step toward him. "Sorry for what?" "For pretending to protect me by hiding the truth I loved Grandma too. I wanted a chance to say goodbye. And because of you, I never got it." Silence hung in the air. I looked out at the crowd, once familiar churchgoers, Grandma's friends, even the pastor, standing in shock. "This was Grandma's final message," I said softly. "She made sure all of you would see it today." Then I turned and walked back to the pew. The organist restarted the hymn, and I sat down, shoulders heavy, but heart oddly light. I didn't cry or shout. The weight had come off my chest with the words. They still owed me countless apologies and amends, but for once I felt heard. Grandma's final message was out, and no one could ignore it anymore. The days after were strange and quiet. I took Grandma's old house as mine, just as she wished. Mornings I brewed coffee in her kitchen, listening to the old radio play soft jazz. Her garden still bloomed tulips she'd planted in spring, and roses that climbed the trellis. Sometimes a neighbor's cat would sun itself on her porch, and it felt like a sign life goes on. My parents withdrew. A week later, my father showed up with remorse in his eyes. He apologized again for everything. I nodded, not out of forgiveness, but understanding the gap we'd never bridge. He and my mother sold Grandma's car, her valuables, everything she had before I learned the truth. They said Grandma would have wanted me to use her things. I found that hard to believe. The community also felt the shift. At church, people would sidle up and put a gentle hand on my shoulder. "She would be proud of you," they'd whisper. It was oddly comforting and horrifying all at once. My private pain had gone public. Even I had to marvel at the scene we'd created. In the months that followed, I tried to piece together a life in Grandma's home. I got rid of too many memories at once, half of her furniture, all the knitted throws, except the one with tiny holes I had always mended for her. I took a job at the old bookstore down the street, just as Grandma had liked. Each evening, I walked home by myself in twilight, trying to get used to not having people around. Jana, God bless her, came over every weekend. She brought stories about our parents, how Dad kept the old letter opener on his desk to remember the fight, how Mom cried herself to sleep for weeks. We didn't make excuses for them. They had chosen this. But Jana made me laugh, which felt like a gift. She planted a sunflower by Grandma's porch in remembrance. It now towers over the swing where I write these words. The world didn't end after revenge. Life took me by the hand slowly. I got braces I'd been putting off, enrolled in night classes for digital design, something Grandma always insisted I try, and even adopted a quiet gray cat from the shelter, naming her Joy after Grandma's gift of, well, giving me joy. When Joy sneezed on a sunny windowsill, I broke into a grin. Perhaps that I realized was really what Grandma meant by joy. As for my parents, they faded into the background. They sometimes call during holidays, but I speak politely and keep it surface level. We are no longer the same family we were not by a long shot. I don't hold anger at them every day now, but I won't pretend nothing happened. They missed out on seeing me become someone stronger. It's a victory I don't boast about. It's mine and Grandma's secret finally told. Justice had a cost, I learned. I had Grandma's house, but no living room laughter with her family. I had her money, but I paid in sleepless nights. I had her last words stitched into a ribbon, but replaying them is my alone time now. Yet those costs also gave me clarity I didn't have before. I appreciate silence now. I savor morning light and quiet evenings. I know who I am beneath the pain someone Grandma believed in, someone worthy of her trust. I look at the framed note I keep on my desk, her handwriting still red and vivid, all that is mine. I run my fingers over it, smile slightly, and whisper, "It still is, Grandma. It still is." Life has a way of flipping our world upside down when we least expect it. I've spent many late nights sitting in Grandma's garden staring up at the stars, thinking about everything that's happened. The pain of betrayal still lingers, but so does the warmth of the love and lessons she gave me. If there's one thing this journey taught me, it's that truth and love are what truly matter. I once believed that keeping quiet was the same as acceptance. I see now it was silence. By speaking up painfully proudly, I honored Grandma's memory and broke the silence. And you out there might have your own silence to break. If something in my story resonates with you, please let me know in the comments. Share your own story. Let us be the family that listens when real family let us down. To everyone who might be watching this, maybe feeling hurt or unseen right now, listen, you're not alone. We all face storms, and I promise even the darkest night ends with dawn. It might seem impossible to stand up for yourself sometimes, but look how far courage took me. This isn't just a tale of betrayal, it's about finding hope. It's about Grandma's wisdom living on through me. She often said, "Cherish the good and learn from the bad." Each day, I try to live by those words. The house Grandma left me is filled with reminders of her love, and every morning, I wake up grateful for what I have, even as I miss what I lost. Healing doesn't happen overnight. There are still moments I feel, tearful nights I question if I did the right thing. But when I think of Grandma watching over me, I find peace. She trusted me to know what was right, and that gives me strength to trust myself. Her strength lives in me now, and I carry it into each new day. I know this video asked a lot of me. Perhaps it stirred up memories or emotions in you as well. If it did, thank you for being here. You gave me the courage to share my story. And now it's your turn. Tell me in the comments, what would you do if you were in my shoes? How did this story make you feel? I promise to read every comment and respond, because your thoughts and experiences mean the world to me. To you watching, if my story moved, you please show some love. Hit the like button because every like encourages more stories like this. Subscribe to join our journey of real, honest stories. Our community is built on real people, real struggles, and real love. Click the bell icon so you don't miss future videos where we unpack life's toughest moments together. And if you know someone who might need this message, share this video with them. You never know whose day you might brighten. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening to my story and for being here. Grandma's spirit taught me to stay kind, to stay strong, and to take care of each other. I will carry that lesson with me always. Stay safe, stay kind, and remember, no matter how quiet things seem, we are never truly alone.